Hi, this is Mary Kurek of Frontrunners Innovate magazine, and I am here with Sufyan. And Sufyan has been a longtime friend and of the Frontrunners League and Frontrunners Innovate magazine. We've had plenty of business talks because you and I share a business partnership between us with Living, Learning, and Working Inc. And as long as I have known you, you've been into education. And so because the edition of the magazine that we're working on right now is centered on sort of beyond education, it's education during pandemic, after pandemic, what is the pandemic doing to education and learning, all respects, all the way from the ground zero, all the way up to higher education, and all that exists around it. And I know that you've launched a podcast that is bringing in some of those experts that are looking at innovation in education. So we'll get to that. But what I want to do first, Sufyan, is if you'll just tell us a little bit about your background so that they have a frame of reference of why education. And then let's talk about Educate First, which is your sort of umbrella organization that deals with a lot of the projects that you're working on. So give us a little background.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, Mary. So basically, it really started in 2015 when a friend of mine introduced me to a guy, John Taylor Gatto, who's passed away now. And just at the same time, my friend was doing homeschooling with his children. So when I read some of that work, it just shone a light on my forehead to say what's happening to my children is not really very, very right, and that there is many opportunities for the children to get information, the same information at home, on the World Wide Web. So my thought process has always been like that. And then in 2016, we decided to homeschool, and my son did it for 1 year. Then he went back to school, and then my daughter did it for 2, and then she's gone back to school. But the biggest takeaway from that was that my son said that he doesn't feel like he's stupid. So for me, those whole 2 years was absolutely worth it, just for him to have that feeling about himself. So he approached his learning completely differently now. And now they understand that, and they accept more than anything that information is available, quality information is available everywhere, and it's not just in school. So that's where that started from.
So at what point, now Educate First, when you were developing out your sort of umbrella organization, what was your vision for that organization? And did you have any idea of certain projects that you were going to start with?
Well, it sort of started from when we were doing the homeschool. So the ideal is basically based on a homeschool principle, where children that want to learn a particular area, a particular field of learning, they'll have the access, and more importantly, the time to be able to pursue that. So if they want to study English or maths or computer science for sort of 4 to 5 hours a day, then they can do that. And then it will just give them the opportunity to just level up at their pace. Some may just go, might have a really high trajectory. Others might be a little bit more progressive. So I think the main sort of focus and the main thought process behind that was, let's open the door to specificity. Instead of just being general, if we narrow it down and be really specific, and then, okay, maths, English, and computer science, there are millions of children out there that could do maths for 8-9 hours a day, every single day. So why don't we get those kids in? Why don't we get those kids in that could, read? And, yeah. Why don't we get those kids in that could read and write and do plays and all that sort of stuff all day, and they could do algebra and multiplication? Why don't we just let them do that instead of getting all the other stuff in the way? We just make it sort of a bit more open for that. So what the idea is to what we want to do. We want to have, at least sort of like 10 to 15 learning centers in each country at a minimum. That's the ideal. And then we want to sort of make it something where it's very, very accessible to everybody, and to turn it into a platform. So therefore, if you're not able to sort of have a kind of traditional brick and mortar place, you can just still access it via online. So it's about giving out the quality information and the quality tutoring as well.
You know, I kind of agree with you there. Along with all of that, I think the one thing that threw me when I was growing up, and I think I was like in third or fourth grade, maybe third grade, and testing was a really huge thing for me. And I don't know how a lot of young people deal with it now, but it, you know, you were talking about your son not feeling stupid. I'm not sure if that was bullying or if that was just testing his knowledge and then he didn't do well on test and then he felt stupid because he didn't do well. I don't know that I had so much about the results of my test were probably C average, not really, you know, not really so bad and not really so good when I was growing up. But I do remember how I felt about it, and I was literally sick to my stomach and I would throw up. And I mean, I would throw up because of the pressure that I felt at home and also from the school standpoint, from the, you know, from the, I guess, from the teaching staff or whatever. But, you know, the one thing that I think is important, if you let kids kind of go into an area they know that, or I mean, we have to have a broad-based education for everybody of certain things we got to know, and need to know how to read, write, those types of things. But at some point, just like with higher education, you need to let kids kind of deviate into areas, I think, and let them excel at what they naturally, their gifts are. I mean, I am not the detailed technical mind, I'm the creative mind. And if you let me go off into areas where I can write and I can, you know, and I can do things creatively, design, write, think more creatively, design thinking and stuff like that. If I had been able to do that when I was younger, I would have been eons ahead of, you know, kids my age at a certain point. But, and that's why I believe that mentoring component also is really necessary, because I'm a mentor of a young girl who already was on the leadership path. And at 15 years old, knew where she wanted to go with her life. And when somebody, even though if that changes down the road, if somebody has that strong feeling about it, and you can wrap around them some people that will be supportive and help point them in that direction, my goodness, she's like, right now, I think she just turned 17 years old. She has an internship that most 23-year-olds would die for, paid more than minimum wage, as many hours she wants to work, in a company culture that we'd all go, oh my gosh, let me there, let me get there, you know, let me go there. So amazing. I know that that is all good for her. And they're actually giving her books to read about team building and things like that. They're going to build her further out. So I'm just proud of her. And I think that leadership in wherever she goes, she's going to be ahead of the game. So I'm really on board with what you're doing. So talk to me. I know that you and I've talked in the past, and I know that you're working with some folks in Africa. You have been with a gal in Kenya, I think, and then now with Osita in Nigeria. Tell us a little bit about the vision you guys have for some of this work that you're trying to do in this area of the world that clearly needs a lot of help.
So what the vision is in terms of Africa, specifically with, you know, Osita in like Uganda and Nigeria, is to have an educate first setup in every single country in Africa at the minimum. And that's Chad, Egypt, Morocco, Algeria, you know, Senegal, Mali, everywhere. And the point where because the common thread is being specific. So it's be very easy to understand, very easy to relate to. And so that's the starting point. But we also want to make it something that is not just a place where young people come to get information. It's going to be like a sort of community center. So what we also want to create is like a sort of small sort of like coffee shop as well, adjacent to that or attached to the actual building. So obviously we can sort of help create jobs as well in local community, but also people can say, well, this isn't just a place where I'm sending my children to for X amount of hours a day. This is actually somewhere where we can come and hang out. We can talk about some of the things that are happening overall, you know, just the general thing of sharing ideas, but obviously having it as a focal point, because I think what's happened with schools sometimes is that they're not the actual focal point of any one community, and that's what we want to change. We want to make every Educate First center the focal point of that community. So it's got places where people can go and hang out, but your children are also there for, you know, the X amount of time. So we want people to be able to come in, share ideas, and then see what we can do to expand. What can we do to offer the community? So we don't want to just go in like some people may have gone in before, sort of riding in like a sort of savior. We're here to sort of say, well, what can you bring to us? What can we bring to you? What can we do together? So it's like, okay, well, the community really needs children who are very, very good at maths. Okay, cool. Let's have an X amount of cohorts of children that are really into maths, because the community needs that. The community needs, we want writers. We want kids that are good at programming. We want this. Okay, so now we understand what the community needs. So we're not just coming in and just being sort of like a sort of top-down approach. It's more, let's work together from the ground up. And so then as long as we can serve you, then everybody should win.
Well, that's a broad vision. It takes a lot of effort and some money, as we know. So,
Yeah.
but it happens one person at a time, and you're a good connector, so that will happen. So meanwhile, what I love also, and what really got my attention, is you've started a podcast, and you're drawing towards you these people who are problem solving in the world of education and innovating solutions that are maybe a little out of the box. So tell me why you started the podcast and what what conversations you're having with these folks. What are you learning from them?
Well, the podcast actually started from another guy called Carl Milsom. He is a teacher in Indonesia, and we connected on LinkedIn just through like some of the posts that I was putting on. And then we did a short video on his Rebel Teacher Network, on his Talking Teacher Network. It's on YouTube. And then he set up like a Rebel Teacher Network. And then he asked me if I wanted to do a podcast. So I was like, cool, I don't mind that. I always like talking, so it's not a problem for me. So that was fine. And then it's more going to be about some quotes that I've read, sort of things that I've come across that have impacted me, and then to sort of talk about them and then share it sort of with the wider community. So there's been lots of people. There's a guy, David Hollands. He's a guy here in the UK. He's looking to pull up some trees. Fiona Taylor, she's a head teacher at a really great school in High Wycombe. Who else is there? There's someone else, can't come to mind. But there's a lot of people here in the UK and across the world that really want to let the cat stay out of the bag, because I think that's the biggest thing that's happened right now is in education, that the cat's out of the bag now. Lots of children understand that things don't really have to be the way they have been, and a lot of parents have accepted that. A lot of parents have known that, but just not accepted it. And I think a lot of parents have accepted that, okay, my child doesn't really have to sit exams to become successful. So there's going to be a lot of people that I'm going to look to interview and share the quotes with, and get their thoughts. But yeah, David Hollands, Fiona Taylor, Masita as well. I'm going to look to sort of get in with him, because he's got the sub-Saharan thing going on. So there's going to be him and lots of other people. So we're going to do.
Is there any one person or quote that stands out to you as something that's an aha for people in education?
I think in like John Taylor Gatto, in his book Dumbing Us Down, the first part of the book is that there's it's called the 7 Lesson School Teacher, and it's basically 7 lessons that every teacher does. And the first lesson that he talks about is confusion. And he basically says that everything is disconnected. Like there's no common thread between anything that's learned. And that is also like part of the basis of Educate First, is that there's a connection with everything. So if you're learning computer science, it connects to maths. If you're learning maths, it connects to English. So what Gatto was saying was, he teaches too much. He teaches maths, science, astrology, history, English, art. Everything's disconnected. So therefore the child can't really attach themselves to one thing, because there's no common thread. So that's probably the biggest thing that's impacted me. And I've actually seen that myself in schools, where on one wall there's like, well, we've done this maths work, and on another wall in the same room there's the English stuff, and then on another wall, there's the science. So when the kids come in the classroom and they look around, they can see they're actually in the confusion. So that's probably the biggest one that's had the biggest impact about the confusion.
That's fascinating. From the standpoint of the pandemic we're in, what do you see as we emerge out, assuming that we will soon, and hopefully will? What is the good thing and the bad thing? Is there a good thing, bad thing that you have seen in talking with these experts in education that that they're commenting on? Is it the cat out of the bag thing? Is that
yeah. That's the good thing. But then conversely, the bad thing is that some people are trying to put the cat back in the bag, or trying to pretend that the cat wasn't let out in the first place. Because, over here in the UK, kids have gone back to school, and already, teachers are complaining about, exams and tests and things aren't the way that they should be, when they're just completely forgetting that for 6 months, kids haven't even been in school. And, you've got teachers already, clambering, and parents, clambering, when are they going to start doing their tests? And they've got this to do and they've got that to do. And then, like I said, just completely forgetting that for 6 months, your child was at home. So that's the kind of sort of bad thing, where people have just kind of forgotten what they've been through in this time, and then thought to themselves, but information, because I even said to my children, I said, all the different ages that humanity's gone through, we're now in the information age. And I said, when I compared the computers that I had in school to what they've got now, I said, we were just dreaming of having stuff that you guys have got. So you can get information about anything in less than 1 second. I said, so therefore, the need for an actual building, a real institution, has decreased so much. But that's the thing that that we've always known. But what the bad thing about that is that people are pretending that is not the case, when it's for 6 months it has been the case. So that's the kind of sort of thing I think a lot of people are frustrated with. And on LinkedIn, it's been quite evident where there was a lot of talk and a lot of clamour for change and everything else, but now it's gone very, very quiet. So that's a bit disappointing.
What I think I see from the standpoint of just watching from afar is that whole idea of standardizing education and standardizing testing, and I understand the reason for it, or else you don't get the figures you need to have to be able to determine whether or not what you're doing is working, right? But you're trying to standardize human beings to some degree.
Yeah.
And so, that's kind of impossible to do, and especially impossible to do with young kids that, you might harm their sense of confidence or whatever by trying to put them in a box and not let them kind of grow. So I think what we've seen with the pandemic is showing that we can blow that one out of the water for 6 months. And, I know that I have a grandchild that told me the other day that she has only 3 classes. And I think she said she's being homeschooled, but what I think she meant is she was doing virtual education. She said, I'm supposed to have more classes than that, but I only have 3. And almost all of her learning happens through games, through online games, which I'm not opposed to because it keeps her interest and all that at her particular age. But I think that's still learning by yourself. I fear for the lack of socialization during this period when we can't really be social, and having an understanding of, especially with young kids, I think that socialization is so important to be able to grow as human beings with each other, not via video games or something, but where there's fake people there that you're dealing with. You're not really going to hurt Mario's feelings if you kick him out of the whatever. So so, but you might a real person. So, if you kill that guy on that building, that's no big deal because he's going to go away. But, you can't really go out and do that to somebody else you don't like. But, and it sounds simplistic, but, when you got little bitty kids, they equate that in their mind to other things. So we have to be careful with that. But this is great. I think what you're doing is awesome. And I look forward to seeing more of what you're doing with the podcast. And Sufyan Christian, thank you so much for being with me today. And let's continue to keep up with what you're doing, and applause for moving the needle a little bit there. And good luck in Africa on the projects. I'll see what I can do to be of help to you. Thanks.